Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Ben Cena. And I'm so happy that he said yes to our episode. How are you doing today?
I am perfect. I am very well, and it's my pleasure to be here.
And you are inspired for your introduction. Now, I would love to introduce you to the audience. Of course, you are the co founder of High Value Author, a service dedicated to helping professionals publish impactful books without the typical challenges of writing and promotion. With deep expertise in content strategy and brand development, Ben is passionate about transforming ideas into best selling books that amplify credibility and leave a lasting legacy. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Ben.
You couldn't have said that better. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, you are better now than 5 minutes ago. And let's dive into the first question. My first question: what inspired you to start High Value Author, and how does your service simplify the publishing process for professionals?
Well, I think what inspired me is the opportunity that I saw. The opportunity that I saw specifically that is not being leveraged by, first of all, experts, so-called experts in different fields, and they don't see the right book being an opportunity for them to basically use that almost as a platform or as a tool to take whatever they're doing and multiply that thing that they're doing, not by not elevate that by 10 or 20%, but really multiply by 2, 3, 4, 5 times, purely because of the credibility they get from the right message that they put in front of the right people, and that's the key.
Wow, I understand. So you highly recommend to everyone who wants to elevate to publish a book?
No, not everybody.
No.
And this is where it's very important. You have to dissect your goals first, meaning, what is the goal of the book? If the goal of the book, now, even though I might recommend to have a book for everybody, but if you are an expert in a particular field or want to become an expert in a particular field, which most people are, because this is where people get purpose, right, in life. They want to specialize in something, whatever that is, right? Um, if you have and publish a book which talks about what you are doing and why you are good and why this is a great way to do that, this is going to elevate your game. But if you're going to publish a book where you want to take whatever you're doing to the next level, whether that's relationship wise, business wise, or whatever wise, and you publish something, let's say a poetry collection, that is not going to help you, right?
I
That is
understand.
not going to help you unless this is not your first book. You clearly determine that as your passion, not a level of expertise, and you don't want to become known for that subject matter, meaning, let's say, poetry or novels or whatever the case may be. So for people who want to be perceived more like an expert, I definitely recommend.
Oh, thank you so much for the explanation. I understand it's about purpose in life. Finding this out first, you said find your goal, and then you become or you are already an expert in that field, and you use this book that you are going to publish as a vehicle or a vessel. I don't know, vessel, a vehicle to transport your message, of course. And yeah, and that's the key and your secret, right? Because you help people to do that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Where people struggle, and then where people don't see the value, even because there are so many books out there, so many new authors coming into play. and they don't see the value of that. And usually that's because the most books that we see out there, and that's also the opportunity. And I think this is what people must understand. Unlike anywhere else, unlike anywhere else, in the social media world, in a world of uh, corporate or business, right? You really have to make your name, right? And name, personal brand drives things. In a world of books, the name itself is almost never more powerful than the message. Which means if you crack the right message, you always have a shot. People just take it for granted, meaning that they put something out there. Oh, it's gonna be all right. Oh, it's gonna be just fine. That's the right title, good cover, right? And they don't realize, for example, that these are two most important elements: the book title and the cover. And they put something like 5 steps of something. Who cares, right? You didn't put in the work that you could have and would get all those benefits because the opportunity is there, even though there are over 40 million books now out there. But the opportunity is there because most people don't put in the work. 99.9% of those people, 40 million, they don't put in the work. They don't do anything.
I understand. That's a powerful message. Also, you explained the difference between publishing a book because of the book, or as a writer, or publish a book with your expertise, with the purpose to build this personal brand, to make a name. You called it a name, and I had to think of two books when you were talking. First of all, I have to mention it because it's there. I thought about Harry Potter. It's so we may not know the name of the author because we forgot. But how can we forget J.K. Rowling, right? But Harry Potter in itself is a brand now, but it's not what you are doing. I know, but an example what I had in mind was the title for the book. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I don't know if you know this story, how the title was born. Because he had another title in mind, and the right title came in the middle of the night when he had a deadline from his, I don't know, publisher or so. And then the name was born, and it was sold over 200 million times since its publication. I'm a little fan here, Think and Grow Rich, the business Bible. Yes, let's have a look at your next question. Can you share a
I
success?
think we
Yeah,
might want to spend a minute here
of
because I
course.
think you brought very two interesting books that everybody's well aware of, but probably they don't think about it as much. Let's take, for example, J.K. Rowling, and let's take a look at Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, right? Um, Fiction and nonfiction, right?
Yes.
Clear distinction, right? Now, for people out there, some future authors are questioning because they don't have a clear definition. They don't know their goals yet. What's the goal, right? And I'll tell you this right away. If your goal is to establish credibility in a specific field, you go nonfiction. You talk about the subject matter, right? If your goal is and you are passionate about specific mystery novels, uh, um, anything that is fictional, you go that way. If that's your passion, you go about it. If you want to have the biggest possibility of making it financially, which I talked to so many authors, some of them claim it's not the thing until you start talking about it. And then they admit that this is the first thing that they want to know. How long is gonna take to get their money back, right? And the
Yeah.
passion goes out of the window, and that's the next thing, right? Now, the important distinction I think that would be very interesting for people is if you would ask any 7, 10, 12-year old who watch movies, who even read books, I challenge you to ask who is the author of a book? Who is the author of Harry Potter? They would not tell you the name. They would not know because they don't care.
Yeah.
They care about the story, not about the author. Once
That's
we get so called smart, we get the adults, right? We hear about the author and we reverse engineer, oh, this is what happened. So everybody knows J.K. Rowling because actually, because in a world of business, it's being discussed as a successful story, a successful business enterprise because of the movies, because of how successful she was. But that has nothing to do with the story itself because children don't care about that, right? They don't know, they don't care. They care about the story, about the characters. Now, the distinction that's going to Napoleon Hillside, if you would ask anybody who read Think and Grow Rich, 85%, 90% of them will tell you who is the author. That's the audience. Because even though that book doesn't establish him as an expert, it positioned him as a thinker in a strategic way, which is why it's so big. If we go to a more extreme example, if we dive into any of the subjects that he is mentioning, you are the nonfiction category side builds you. The message itself helps you build your name, which is important if you want to grow in whatever you are doing. On the other side, fictional world is different. It's a different game. I could dive deeper in there. I don't think that's a subject for this conversation, but maybe in the future it would be interesting because I know quite a bit about that world, and I know also why our company is not in that world particularly. We don't deal with that because it's more challenging.
Wow, I understand. And I appreciate that you came back to that and you added from your knowledge because I only mentioned these books, And yeah, thank you so much. The difference, fiction and non-fiction, and that when you have a fiction book, that the story is more interesting. You don't remember the author's name. Um, and then the non-fiction book, and we all know Napoleon Hill,
Absolutely.
even though we didn't read the book because most of the people have it in their book shelf, right?
Because the
They,
person is more important than the story. The person who did that, who talked about it and established himself or herself is more important because then they go for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing that that author has done because it's proven that author has now the authority in that field. That's it.
yeah, and that's why it's called author, right? Author
Exactly.
comes from authority. I learned this. Wow, this is
Exactly.
so
Exactly
amazing.
right. Exactly right. And it applies technically more in non-fiction side opposed to fiction because yes, you're an authority in a fictional field, but the benefits that you get from that, taking the big scope of authors, meaning I can have a book that sells 100 copies a month, nonfiction. Let's say I'm talking about a specific subject matter in a business side. If I know what I'm doing, I will make much more impact and financial reward from that completely than if I sell the same amount in a fictional side. And it's much more challenging to sell actually 100 copies a month of fiction books versus nonfiction.
That's true. Thank you so much for sharing. And now, can you share a success story where you helped a client turn an initial book concept into a bestseller and how it impacted their career?
Yeah. So we have so many. We have so many. I think let's say briefly the most successful one recently. Now, this client, and this is what we encourage to do, he had the backend operations in place, meaning the business model. And please let me know if my language is too complicated, right?
Yeah.
I will make it more simple. Um, to support the number of sales that we are getting, meaning that every single person who bought the book is a potential client of yours, meaning that person specifically is in online space selling a particular education program, right? Which is around $3,000, for example, right? In that specific case, that's what it is, 2,500 to 3,000. And the goal of the book is to establish that credibility, authority, right? And make those people naturally go that direction and seek more help. It's almost like a conversation with a doctor, and then you go for a surgery, then you go for a treatment. This is actually how it works, and there is nothing wrong about that. There are so many people who are trying to make it up financially in just from selling books, and it's so difficult to do. And the reason why it is difficult, because you are not going in there deep enough to understand that the reason why you're not making money in making it financially from book sales is because there are companies like ours, or there are people like us who are not there to make money on the sale of a book. They're there to gain customers of a business, that which means I'm gonna spend more on advertising because I'm gaining those customers. I'm gonna outspend those other people who want to make a royalty on each sale when we don't want to make a royalty on each sale. We would rather sell more and not make the royalties, which is instant proof, right? This is where people, oh, am I gonna get instant proof? Now, if whatever you are doing, and everybody is doing that, you don't even have to be a coach, you don't even have to be in educational side. You can be a dentist, you can be in law, you can be in technology, you can be anywhere, right? Actually, it's pretty impossible in fiction side. We can talk about it, but probably not now. uh, where you create your audience there. That's the goal. You create your audience, and you want to get as many of those books out there as possible, and create that pathway from the book to what you're actually doing, whatever your expertise is. How are you helping people? You are not helping people from a book. If you knew that 85% of people never read more than 10 pages, you would understand that. So let's not pretend that we are there to convince people to read the whole thing, because this is just how it works. No matter how brilliant your book is. I think even Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, is, I think the number is 60% of people never read the whole book. Even the book of that establishment, they never read the whole book, more than half of them. How are you going to challenge that? You're going to challenge the proof of over 100,000 reviews, right? Of such a book sold over 200 million copies, you said? No. Have to make that bridge.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you for sharing. I read one page per day of Think and Grow Rich. Yes, it's a project. It's for 365 days because it has similar amount of pages. And because I want to understand it, yeah, there are better books, and you don't have to read them as as you shared.
It's not about that. It's not about what you like, what you don't like. For example, you mentioned that you read one page a day, right? And that's
Yeah.
great. That's great. That works for you. And that actually doesn't matter, because what matters is what your readers are doing. How are they behaving, right? Are you looking at the numbers? Meaning, not necessarily sales numbers. Read on how many pages do we read? What is the statistics? Look at your category of a book. How much people are they're reading there? If 85% of people never read more than 10 pages, chances are, but they still buy your book, and it has nothing to do with your book because we have amazing reviews still, right? Why you don't make that bridge in the first 10 pages? Why don't you make that connection between you and the business? Because you want to understand that people buy books depending on the topic, right? Not to
Yeah.
read them. They buy them to believe in you, that you are actually the expert, and 10 pages was enough. For some people, a table of content is enough. They just read a couple of pages, and then they say, well, let me connect with this person. But you just have to tell them. You have to tell them how to do that. What's the best way to do that? What is the benefit of that? Should we even do that? Right? People are looking for personal connection. Even the readers, they're looking for personal connection. People are looking to solve their problems, find solutions. This is why people buy the books, right? Because people are looking for solutions.
Yeah.
And there's always the next step. And they're buying also the next step.
Oh, it's so simple how you put it out there. Now I understood for the first time. Thank you so much. And I can tell you, I have to re-listen to this episode again. There were so many nuggets. And please, people, reach out to Ben. He's amazing and he has information not many people have. And where can we find you?
Well, it's very simple. You just go to highvalueauthor.com. We make it simple. Once you land there, you'll know what to do. Once you land there, you'll see what to do. There are very
Yeah,
simple explanations. What you want to reach out, you want to talk to our team, or to even to me personally. Sometimes it's possible.
I love it. I'll check out your page, of course, and I put it in the show notes. And this was our interview. Now is time for your last thoughts to the audience, please.
I think my last words would be: people always look for instant gratification, for instant return, and they don't have what is called a medium term strategy. They're thinking about long term goals, and they're thinking about now. They're dreaming and they're solving problems of today. And that's why they don't go to a next step, next two steps, next three steps. And that's what the book is. Because you cannot write a really amazing book in a month. It's not possible. People are talking about AI, things like that. It's not going to happen. Books are not meant to be written by AI. Maybe it's going to be in 50 years, I don't know. But at the moment, it's not possible. People are looking for personalities. People want to believe in you. It's difficult to believe in a robot. It's a bit difficult to go there and establish that connection. But it's not a 1 month game. It's going to take 4, 5, 6, 8 months to create something that's amazing. But people are struggling with that. It's going to take time. It's going to take some investment as well, right? To make it amazing, to craft the whole process. But it's going to serve you for years and even decades if you do it right. So, whatever else you're doing, you're going to get a multiple on that. If you just do this piece, which is going to take time, but you only need to do it once. You don't need multiple books. You only need one right book, and it's going to serve you for a long, long, long time. And the best time to start is now. Just think about it for a moment. Think about what message you want to share with the world. Why is that important to you and for those people? If you have some sort of an answer, then a conversation with people like myself or somebody else in the field who really know what we're doing makes sense. And it makes sense for a lot of people because they are doing what we're doing for a reason. They want to serve their families, they want to know that their own progress is going up and they have a bigger purpose, meaning serve a specific group of people. And usually, if we dive a couple levels deeper, we get to the answer why. If you have that why, you have to do it.
Wow. You inspired me. You know what? It was not the last message and not the last thoughts or last words. It was the first words. I will rename this category. This is your first words because people meet you afterwards, right? And they connect. Please connect to Ben. He's amazing. And thank you for our interview.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. I hope that people are getting value. And I hope that people are doing something about it, which is the most important part. There are so many people learning, which is getting information, and they're not doing anything about that. And that is not knowledge.
Yeah,
Implementation, information plus implementation is knowledge. Once you do enough of that, that's wisdom. And most people are not wise.
thank you for sharing and see you in the next episode.